Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Level Up and Live podcast, the show where we explore the intersection of business, life, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sean Meyers, joined by my co-host, Ewan Heinemeier. And today, we have a truly special guest joining us for the second time, the amazing Kendra Meyers. Kendra is not just an expert in her field. She's a dog lover, business owner, and a powerhouse of wisdom when it comes to aligning our business and personal goals with the rhythm of life, as mirrored by our furry companions. So get ready for an enlightening conversation that will not only inspire you, but might just encourage you to look at your four-legged friends in a whole new light. But before we jump into the conversation, a quick reminder for all of our dedicated listeners out there, if you're looking to make 2024 your best year yet, head over to our shared notes. We've got a treasure chest of free guides and planners to help you kickstart your journey towards a stronger, healthier, and more intentional life. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode with Kendra Meyers.
This is a very special episode because we have none other than Kendra Meyers on the show, in the house, and we're in the virtual studio today. I'm a tad sick, but I am almost fully cured by seeing their faces on Zencastr right now. I see Sean and Kendra, and these are two of my closest people on the planet, and I love everything about them, everything they stand for. They are big. They love people more than most. That they're vulnerable. They've worked on themselves, and they're very special people. And this might sound like an odd topic that we're going to talk about today, but I promise you, hang tight. Try and prove us wrong that this is not very important. And without further ado, we're going to talk about dogs today. Yes, I said it, dogs. Trip and Dixie. If you haven't met these two dogs, they are beautiful, obedient. They got so much character, and Sean and Kendra will obviously go into more detail about them, but we're going to discuss the relationship between dogs, humans, and how we show up in one area of life is how we show up in others. And this is a beautiful way to gauge yourself, where you're at, how you handle things, emotions, frustrations, your joys and your loves with your dog. Again, so hang tight. This is going to go a lot deeper than you think it is. So without further ado, Kendra, share what is on your heart today about the dogs. We're going to get into it.
Hi. No, well, Sean said, hey, we should have you on as a guest on the podcast. And I was like, to talk about what? And he's like, I don't know, like something cool, something important. I'm like dogs? And he was like, yeah, we can talk about dogs. I'm like, are you serious? You want to talk about dogs? He's like, yeah, why not? And I was like, okay, well, I could easily talk about dogs because I think that, no offense to all of the people out there, including my husband, but dogs are super important. And they bring joy to our lives, especially my dogs that I feel like I treat like humans.
Why is that, Kendra?
To be honest, I have no idea. Growing up, we had dogs, but never, ever did I guess, like, take ownership of the dog. Like, there was this one dog I loved. Her name was Buddha, but she was like an outside dog and she just like hung out, but I loved her still. But I never understood dogs or like all the things that we're probably going to talk about today until we got Trip, which is our first dog. And he is 10. And at the beginning, I was just like, oh, Sean, we should go to the pet store and go play with dogs. And he's like, but why? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe we need a dog. And I remember at the time, I was like, I want an English bulldog. And Sean's like, ew. Why would we want an English bulldog? And I'm like, it's just so cute, like his little scrunch face. And he was like, I don't know. They just have all these issues. So we went to the pet store and I played with an English bulldog and I was like, ew, this dog's boring. And then Sean saw this black lab and he's like, hey, why don't you play with this dog? And I was like, I don't know. I don't really feel this dog. And I mean, he was cute, played, whatever. And then Sean was like, what about that little yellow guy? And I'm like, ooh, let me play with him. Immediately fell in love with Trip. And I'll never forget this. The day we got Trip, Sean, we were at the Woodlands Mall. Yes, we bought him from the mall. I say that we saved him from the mall because everybody's like, they're puppy mills. And I'm like, we saved him. We adopted him.
That's right.
You know, we saved him from that. But I remember we like the pet store in the Woodlands Mall is very close to like Macy's. And Sean was like, okay, I'm going to go to Macy's and I'm going to go to the bathroom and you're going to put the dog up. And I'm like, and I like laughed it off and he got back and I was like, I'm not putting this dog up. He's my dog. And I'll never forget that day because we took him home that day and Sean was like, what are we doing? We had to go to Walmart and get like a pet bowl and like some dog food. Maybe they gave us dog food. I don't know, but we didn't have anything for a dog. So we had to go and get all the stuff for the dog. And that's kind of just how our little journey began. And Trip is honestly he's 10. He's going to be 11 in February. He's brought so much joy to our lives. It's unreal.
I'm going to be careful how I say this. So we just got the true story. Sean, how about you give us your version? We got the true one. So, we'll hear your version of it. I'm just kidding. I'm sure you're going to back it right up.
I like how you frame that. So
I know Kendra. I know how to. I don't mess with Kendra.
You're a smart man.
Yeah,
that's why you're in the virtual studio today, man. So
I'm not sick at all. I just did like 18 miles.
So her story is pretty spot on. And for what was going through my mind was, here we are, 2012. Me and her are just getting together, like as far as
it was our 1 year anniversary.
1 year anniversary.
Wow.
It was a big transition, right? We had done everything. It seemed like everything happened at once. We literally got married. I got terminated from Enterprise.
No, we weren't married yet. We were just dating.
Oh, just dating. Okay, that's right. Sorry.
How long have y'all been married? What's your next anniversary?
We've been married 6 years in May.
6 years in May. Okay.
But we've been together almost 12 years.
12 years. Yeah, that's right. So we were just dating and we had our 1 year anniversary. We had bought a house. I had been terminated. And then, so that was going through my mind is right. It's like, all right, how are we going to keep a roof over our head? I was living paycheck to paycheck and we went to the mall. I don't know why. Did we go to the mall because of the dog, Kendra? Or because of we wanted to go to
we were bored, I think, and we wanted to go do something. And I was like, let's go play with dogs.
Yeah. we weren't like, we're not mall people. Like we don't just go to the mall, right? And for some reason that day we had went and we had walked in. And of course I was raised around animals. I had never had one as far as when it was just me and when I left that from out of college. And so fast forward.
You had a dog growing up, Sean, you said?
Yeah, I had a dog growing up. And then there was that time gap, I went off to college and then fast forward, met Kendra and got a house together. And then we're together for a year. And so hadn't had a dog for multiple years. And so it wasn't even on my mind. We show up to the mall and I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I always love seeing for me, it was important to see when Kendra gets happy, she is just beautiful to be around. Right. And so it's I spend my time how can I continuously make Kendra happy? Right. Cause as long as she's happy, things are good. And so if she wants to go see dogs, okay, cool. Let's go see dogs. So I'm deep down inside, I'm I know we're going to go in here, we're going to walk around and then we're going to walk back out. Well, I don't know. The Lord had different plans because normally I put my foot down with certain things like that. We walk in, we play with the bulldog. I'm man, this thing is not cool. We don't want to, we couldn't see ourselves with that bulldog. So I already see in my mind visualization. I'm we're walking out of here without a dog because we're already having a bad experience. And next thing I know, I'm we catch this yellow dog out of the corner of our eye. And it's a little bitty cute puppy dog, 6 weeks old, Kendra?
Yeah, he was 6 or 7 weeks.
I mean, this dude was a little in the palm of my hand. I was oh, cool, and Kendra's can I play with it? I was all right, the little box in the mall, you play with it. It's not even 25 square feet. She's sitting down, I'm standing up top, and she's you gonna come in here and play? She was trying to sell me on it, and I didn't even know this. And I'm standing up there, I'm yeah, it's only a matter of time before we roll out of here. Let's go eat some lunch. She's but he's so cute. I'm all right, yeah, he is cute, but that's not what we came here to get. And she's well, come in here and sit down and hold him. And I didn't know what was going on. I was all right, well, if this is making my wife happy, I'll come in here and I'll experience it with you. I go in there, and this little dude, like, he's just the cutest little dude, and you touch him, you feel him, you smell him, it's like a cell. These people know what they're doing in the mall. They know it's like a sales boiler room, right? It's like when you start touching these dogs. And so I think he was just chill. And to make the long story short, Kendra like looked at me with her little blue eyes and started batting them, it's like, and then she just went straight for the kill, man. She was like, "Can we please get him?" And I was like, "No, babe." And she remembers the restroom part. I don't remember the restroom part. That's the only part.
I do, because you said to make a purchase that big, we had to think about it and like overnight, because obviously the mall puppy and him being a full bred yellow lab, I mean, he wasn't super expensive, but he wasn't cheap. And so you were like, "No, we need to think about it. We need to go home." And I'm like, "I'm not leaving him." And you were like, "I'm going to go to the bathroom and come back, and please put the dog up."
That's when I was like big on like Dave Ramsey, because he told you, it's like, hey, if you spend over $300, this dog was like $750. If you spend over $300, you need to take 24 hours to think about it. And that's what I told Kendra. So I was like, all right, that's right. I went to the restroom, came back, and yeah, the rest is history. She's like, "Can we please get him?" And then at that point, I was like, I didn't think about like the long term. Like, here we are 11, 12 years later, we still have Trip. Like, how much, like, just going outside of your element, going outside of your comfort zone on with what you're familiar with, right? How even though like every like part of my body was like, "No, this is a liability. This is something that's going to take a lot of our time, energy, and effort and take away from our goals." Like, this was all going through my mind. Even though that happened, like, the Lord works in mysterious ways and everything happens for a reason. He's not going to give us something we can't handle. I tell you what, man, he's been the best investment, like, as far as a dog goes, like joy, bliss, happiness, licks you in your face. Yeah. So that's my side of the story.
Hey, I would just like to say, though, real quick, Sean just called Trip an investment. Usually he says our dogs are liabilities. So I would just like everyone to know that he is saying that our dogs are investments.
Not all investments are monetary.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Some of them are spiritual and familial. And yeah, it's so interesting because when I think about Sean and Kendra, just even saying it right there, I immediately think of two yellow labs. Like, it's synonymous. It's your family. Like, maybe when you hear Ewan and Kel, maybe there's some element of there's Henley and Lachlan as well, like our kids, and they are your babies. Those dogs are your family through and through. And I've just known them to be part of your DNA for the last decade plus, So you get the dog, and this is where it gets interesting, because everybody can fall in love with a puppy, even you, Sean. On the first day, you were
That's
seeing
right.
it as a dollar thing, but you loved that puppy right away. And so that was a spur of the moment kind of move. So the next 6 months is all bliss. Right? Because you can just talk to a dog and tell it what to do, and it does exactly what you say. This is a period where you find out a lot about yourself and how you handle things under stressful moments, because you don't have any other, you have nothing to fall back on. There is no blueprint. It's just your emotions and the circumstances at hand with a little being that you can't communicate with. So, does that not sound like other areas that could show up, like owning a business? There's going to be things that get thrown in, like when you're dealing with a new, and I'm not comparing dogs to humans, but what we are comparing is your response to situations with another being that you don't have control over. You only have control over yourself. So yeah, what was the first 6 months like getting, there's the happy times with the frustrations and everything. What would that look like?
Honestly, with Trip, it was so easy. He was so easy. Like, yeah, he didn't like his little kennel, but we didn't really make him stay in it unless we weren't home. He loved sleeping under our bed. He was easy. Now, fast forward, 6 years later when we got Dixie, because Dixie's 5, I don't know how I survived that. Dixie has had a very rough life. In the first, we got her when she was a couple months, she had actually been returned to the pet store twice. So just to give you a little backup, since told you how we bought Trip, let me tell you how we bought Dixie. So before our honeymoon, right after we got married, before our honeymoon, I said, oh my gosh, we need to find Trip a girl. And my niece always told Sean, Trip needs a mama dog. And Sean was like, I don't know. And he's like, well, let's go to the pet store and we'll just look again. And we saw this yellow lab. I played with her, but we were literally leaving in like 2 days to our honeymoon. And I was like, okay, this just doesn't make sense. And Sean's like, Kendra, we really need to go. Like, my mom's not going to watch a brand new puppy and Trip and her dogs. Like, let's just go. And I'm like, okay, you're right. Like that makes sense. So we left. Fast forward, we went on our honeymoon for a week. We came back and I'm like, dude, we need to go back to that pet store and see if that dog is still there. Like, she was so cute. And when I went back, we saw Dixie. And at this time she was, I guess it was probably like 2 weeks later. She was probably, I don't know, remember how old she was, 4 or 5 months old. Like, she wasn't a little puppy. And she was like the only one left. And the lady was like, yeah, she's actually been returned twice. And I'm like, what? Why? Like, she's so cute and so fun. And she was biting everything. And the lady was like, yeah, she's just like a family bought her. I know one of the families bought her and they just said she was too much to handle because obviously she's a yellow lab and a puppy at that. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And the girl was like, but we take her home every night. She's a snuggler. Like, we love her. And I'm like, that's perfect because Trip and Sean do not snuggle. They didn't want anything to do with snuggling. And I was like, that's what I wanted, was just like a little girl dog to snuggle with me. And so I was like, Sean, we need to get her. And so we did. Okay. At this point, Trip was no longer in a kennel ever. Okay. He roamed the house. He did what he wanted because he owned our house pretty much. And Dixie, we were trying to kennel train her and she would cry and cry and cry. Like, I would put Trip in the kennel. I would get in the kennel. I would cover the kennel. I would put things in the kennel. Like, I literally listened to every single Facebook expert, all those people on the internet that tell you exactly how to fix your puppy. And it wouldn't fix. Like, she was broken and she would cry and it would make me cry. And I was like sleep deprived. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Because like, she couldn't tell me. And I don't know, like, she just hated it. And so we finally would like let her sleep with us unless we were gone. And then she finally got in the kennel and we were like, dude, this dog, she was potty trained like within a week. And so I was like, she's perfect. Well, then we leave her out of the kennel. And in that process, she decided to chew up our entire couch one day. I literally logged in on video and was watching her chew our couch. And I was like, oh my gosh, Dixie, stop. I tried to see if Amazon could deliver a couch the same day. Just didn't know that Dixie chewed the couch. And like, she was sick. And I remember we got her fixed at 6 months because we were like, we can't do puppies.
Wait, so did you say she had been returned twice?
Twice.
But a family and then another family?
Yes. Wow. But that's because God knew she was mine.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. So you know why they returned her, is because she was crying. She couldn't be.
Probably. She like hated it. Like I don't know. She like loved life, but she hated the kennel. And she hated, like, I don't know. It was just different. She liked being around people. But when she was 6 months old, she got really, really sick. And you were like saying a while ago, like sometimes we don't know what they're saying to us. It took us about 3 or 4 months of her being extremely sick. There was actually one night that I remember we were meeting you and Kel for dinner. And I almost canceled because I was cleaning my house because she was so sick and it was all over my house. Like, she broke out of her kennel.
Wow.
And, like, she was super, super sick and she didn't know how to tell us. Obviously, we kept going to the vet, thing like that. Needless to say, she had salmonella.
Wow.
But
this whole time, or was that just a random?
So, I mean, not to like throw the vet under the bus, but when she got fixed, they told me they took her out back, to try to go potty, because of like the anesthesia and stuff. And that vet clinic had like livestock in the back. And apparently that's how you can get salmonella as a dog. And they didn't realize that that's what it was. Like, it took months of like testing and stuff like that. And they finally sent her blood work to A&M and A&M figured out that it was salmonella.
And you were saying you were crying and staying up late at night and sleep deprived. Like, that's her, I know how that it's brutal. You actually kind of black out towards those times. And I know how you handle it, Kendra. You were there. I'm very curious, Sean, how did you because you're very regimented, you routine and on point, and don't you keep things steady. How was that for
Yeah,
you?
man. It crushed me. And what I mean by that is like I have very like at that point, this was what, a few years back, Kendra?
2018.
2018, yeah. So 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And this was that point where I was like building, and she knows like, man, 14, 15-hour days and, building the insurance business. And we were just had my head down, and I've shared in other episodes, head down the sand, just focused on like one or two different things within the business. And then like, it was just always been me and Kendra and Trip, and Trip's been this like golden child, right? Like, I mean, no, like vet once a year, like hasn't broken a bone, like, goes, I mean, runs with me, goes jet skiing with us. Like, I mean, just everything's perfect with him. And then Dixie comes in the mix.
Do you remember the time he jumped out of the window of your jacked up truck and he landed on his feet and just kept running?
What?
Yeah.
Like nothing even happened to him.
Wow.
He was like amazing.
Yeah. And so
Like
when
Batman.
Dixie came into the mix, I mean, it was just like one thing after another. And so I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, we're going to have another trip. Everything's going to be fine and rainbows and sunshines. Man, the Lord had different plans. But let me tell you something, man. To me, in a beautiful way, it like grew me. Like when I reflect back, I didn't understand, like during those moments, it was very hard for me. It like pulled my piece because I just wanted everything to go back to like routine, structure, and what we were doing, because it pulled a lot of time, energy, and effort away from, like, if something was going on with Dixie, it would make Kendra sad. Well, then I would have to be there for Kendra. And one of my weaknesses is empathy and compassion. I'm just like, well, hey, let's fix it and move on. Right. Like, but that's where again, this was several years ago where I had to really show up the best I could. And that was another, it's interesting because that was another kind of like sign, like red flag, like wake up call. Like, why am I feeling this way? And why am I showing up this way for my wife when I should be showing up differently, more compassionate and more loving and more there for her during these times? Because with Kendra, she showed up, gave her whole heart, went to bat, like was this unstoppable mama bear for Dixie, would sleep with her on her mattress, would take her to, the vet in early mornings or late nights, and just show up for her. And this, like, I had not seen Kendra do this in all the years that we'd been together. And it was like, reflecting back, I'm like, man, this really took me to a whole other level of like love for her, because I'm like, so if I can't move and I need somebody to wipe my butt, like, I know what Kendra's going to be doing for me. Like, Mama Bear is going to come out and get me taken care of when the time gets rough.
That's a weird Kendra's face.
Talk about this.
That was brilliant. I love that, man, because that's love. Obviously, it sounds like Kendra's, your motherly instinct, just when someone needs looked after, you stepped in. And Sean, how old were you at this point?
So I was probably 31. That was it right in that time. Yeah.
Right there. Man, you said it. Hey, let's get past this. Let's fix it. I'm speaking to all the men, all the husbands right now. Check yourself right now. If you're listening to this, hands up. Who's a good husband? You're a good husband. Everyone's putting their hand up, right? And all the guys, like, I don't think a husband out there like, nah, I'm a pretty crappy husband. Everyone's putting their hand up. I would have said 30, 31, 28. I'm a great husband. Man, what you just said right there, how could you be the husband that your wife needs when you're saying things like, hey, let's move past this? If any guy resonates with that right now, where you're saying, let's get past this, let's just fix this, man, you don't understand your wife. You don't understand females. And I'm saying this from personal experience. Like, we just don't get it. Our heads are, man, not just with your business, your head is down. Your head is down in life because you're so busy thinking about, well, you're thinking about yourself there, Sean. Let's get past this so that I feel good. We all say that. Let's get through this so I can get back to my peace, because you're pulling it right now. So how, and again, when I say selfish, it sounds like that's some kind of like, bad guy in a movie. Oh, it's the selfish, evil guy. No, selfish is just, you're just thinking about yourself. It's not like deliberate deal. It's just you can't think outside yourself. Like when I think about my 8-year-old son, he wants to make a YouTube video right now because he just thought of it. Well, we're about to have dinner. Your mom's making dinner. It's late. We're getting ready to wind down. And you're upset now because you want to make this YouTube video about your new lightsaber, which I love. I love that we're going to do that. But there's other people's worlds going on. And he doesn't consider that. And that's an 8-year-old child talking about his lightsaber. No, man, I'm talking about a 31-year-old Ewan Heinemeier, Sean Myers, males not understanding the compassion, the empathy. Even if you are very empathetic, there's still areas you're missing. And Kendra, how did that show up to you when Sean was like that at the time when not knowing?
Well, I mean, when Dixie was sick and stuff like that, and we were dealing with that, and Sean would be like, "Oh my God, let's just move on." I'm like, dude, he's like, "Let's sell the dog." And I'm like, "I'll sell you."
Oh.
Like, I am not going to let you sell my dog. Or he's like, "Let's return her or something." And I'm like, we're past the return window. Like, he would make jokes because obviously she was returned so many times, but I'm like, that's not how it's going to work. And I think he finally just was like, "Okay, well, she's your dog. Just let me know how I can support you." And I'm like, "Okay, that's like what I want you to say is like, I'll support you. Like, she can be my dog. I don't care. Like, I will deal with everything that her poor little life has to happen, to her." But
well, think about what you just said right there, Kendra. Sean, would you say it's her dog today?
Dixie?
Yep.
It depends.
No, I mean, internally, like, I know it's both of our dogs, and like, she knows, like, Kendra can correct me if I'm wrong, but she knows, like, if push come to shove, like, I got her back. And I think, I don't know.
He does. Yeah. He always says, like, "Oh, Dixie, you're my baby girl." And I'll like catch him and he's like, "Who's the best little girl?" Or "Who's my, what do you say? You're like, who's my baby girl?" And I'm like, "Me." And Sean's like, "No, I was talking to Dixie." I'm like, "What the crap?"
Look at the shift, though. Look at the morph, the wisdom and the maturity that comes along with that's available for men, right? Like Sean was to where that's your dog. Let's kidding about selling her. I'll support you in your deal. Now, you're 36 going to 37. And this is a fast transition, really. I say this all the time. Most men do not awaken to the fact that they're immature with their wives and families until mid-30s, right? So you caught it early, but that you've able to come from where you are to now. And which version is more happier? The one that's trying to pawn it off, push it over there so I can keep myself straight? Or is it the one that's got this family of love and got your wife's back and your dogs, right? And it's the same with kids. Like, it's no different. We don't show up differently with living animals, like and human beings. So still the love is love. And so, yeah, Kendra, keep going. So what was that like at the time?
I am so sorry. I forgot. Like, what did you want me to explain?
Just the environment.
I've never been interviewed like this before, by the way.
Hey, this is great conversation. I've never heard this before. This is like, I've known you guys for a decade and a half almost, and this is new. It's really intriguing because we're not just talking about like stories. Instead, this is like human beings interacting with how we do one thing, is how we do everything. And these are great examples for people to hear, to check themselves. Are you hitting your dog? Are you yelling at your dog? Are you punishing, not disciplining? Because discipline is super important.
I was so upset with what you just said. Like, who in the world would hit or punish their dog?
A lot of people do because they don't have the mental chops, the mental capacity to handle a frustrating situation with maturity. And hitting doesn't work. I never spanked my kids. Once or twice when my daughter was young, I spanked her, and I realized real quick, this is not going to work. I'm not doing that. I'm not against spanking. If people spank their kids, that's their decision and that's their deal, whatever. But for me, that was not what was required for my kids to be disciplined. But so I think, and some people hit their kids as punishment. It's not discipline. It's not calculated and to help teach, right, and learn. But same thing with people's dogs, right? Like that happens all the time. I mean, it's and you guys wouldn't even consider it, but so why would you not? Like, how did that never happen for you?
I think it's just because of what our dogs honestly have kind of like taught us.
What do you mean?
Like, I don't know. Like, I can't get that mad at Trip or Dixie because they're so nice at not being mad at me. Like, I can be gone for 8 hours and they're not mad at me. They're like extremely excited to see me. They're happy to see me. I can step on their toe or accidentally do something to them that they don't like, or maybe hurt them on an accident. And they're like, oh, it's okay. And they just like, well, Dixie does not lick my face, but Trip, when he was a puppy, we taught him how to kiss. So if I do something that upsets him, he like automatically just like forgives me. And he's like, it's okay. Like, I mean, he doesn't talk obviously, but I feel like he does because he comes up to me and he runs and he gives me kisses and like he'll lick my face. Like I don't love it, but I love it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, when I lick your face, you don't love it. You love it.
Okay, but sometimes it's like, dude, I just took a bath. Like, come on. And I think that's why I couldn't do those things because they're so, I don't know, they're so forgiving and they're so like loving towards us that it's hard to be anything different than that to them.
You know, I read this as like a Facebook post or something, but it was like we have our whole lives, and there's so many different things, and our dogs are part of our lives, and we love them. But our dogs, we are their whole lives.
Exactly, and so we have to make their life like the best that it possibly could be. Like we have to take them on those adventures. We have to take them on walks. We have to, you know, like for our dogs, they love golf cart rides or whatever, or just spending time with them or taking them on our morning runs. Like you have to do that because that's their entire life. But I mean, going back to like, what do we learn and stuff like that? I mean, part of that's, okay, well, why aren't we doing that with the humans?
Yeah.
You know, like,
would you, because you're that, so with your dogs, you find them so easy to be around. Humans are not as nice as your dogs a lot of the time. And yeah, so a couple questions. How do you handle that? And then also, Sean, I was going to ask, like, so that's Kendra's take on that. Like, what was your take as well? And I don't know how you want to answer that, but I want to get answers from both of you. Sean, let's do you say like kind of how you handled it. Then Kendra, I want to know how you handle humans versus dogs.
Handling humans, just so I understand your question.
Well, for you, Sean, so when frustrations, communicating with the dogs, discipline versus punishment and whatnot, like Kendra finds it easy to be lenient for them because they're so good. Like how did you handle that?
Yeah, man. So I'm hardcore. Like love my dad to death. I was raised like belt, board, like hardcore, pick up sticks. I mean, I was raised by a tough man. And honestly, I contribute a lot to like what's allowed me to have a strong backbone and who I am today, you know, so I don't take away from that. However, you know, there's different styles and it's not one size fits all. And there's different ways to go about it. There's different beliefs.
Different eras. Different eras,
right? Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's what my dad went with because that's what he was familiar with and the way I knew Pops, that's how they treated him, you know. So
your dad was lenient on you comparatively because my parents spanked me, but I know they were lenient on me because of the way they were raised, you know.
Yeah. And so like I find that transitioning into like the way Trip and Dixie are. And I think there's like for me and Kendra, like we have a good balance. And it's interesting because it's certain things. It's so weird because like even with like I find myself more direct and disciplined with like Trip, just the boy dog, and like more structured, more routine, like, you know, and when we go on runs and some of the things that we do and like how like when people come over, don't jump and all these things, like I have these high standards with him, you know, and so like where Kendra's just kind of like low expectations, you know, lower standards for the dogs, even though that's important to her. She brings a side of a different balance or a different perspective with, you know, how they are. Yeah, just certain role. And so like there's law and order. Like I'm very like in like, let's stay within these lines. And for me, and then I'll reflect back and go, okay, was that too hardcore or is that too aggressive? And a lot of times, like, you know, if you're asking Kendra, and she'll be able to share her side here in a second, but you know, she has a different approach with it on certain things. Now with like, and that's with Trip. I don't know. It's weird, man. Like, I don't know if there's some psychology behind it, like with boy dogs, but then like on with Dixie, nothing is wrong. Like, she's a princess. She does everything wrong. Like, what her way goes. Like, it's so weird to me, you know? And yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. We had a boy cat, and I treated him totally different than when we got two. He passed on, and we got two little girl kittens, and I treated them so differently.
Okay, so I have a question for you though, Ewan.
Yeah.
Since we're like comparing animals to humans.
I knew this was coming.
You have a boy and a girl kid, human child. So do you feel like it's different with boys and girls?
Zero difference. Like, my son, 100% is treated different than I treat my daughter. And I'm very cautious, very careful to make sure that it is not imbalanced. Like, I'm going to treat him like a boy because he needs to be raised like a man, and she needs to be treated like a woman, like the little girl that she is, so that she knows what a man treats her like. But it can't be imbalanced to where one gets more favor than the other, but the right treatment that they need. So, but yeah, I totally treat them differently. And I think at one point I might have resented my parents when I was younger. Like, oh, they treat my sister different. Well, yeah, because we got different roles, you know, as we grow up and everything. So, even with the animals, it's no different. Like, so yeah, with the kittens, the female kittens, treated them differently than our male cat. And then we have had two boy dogs. And I know if we had a female dog, at some point we might, I would treat her. I just know innately, like you said, Sean, I can feel it. Like, I'd treat them different. Just the roles, man. You know, how do you see that, Kendra? Because you're on the mother side.
I don't know. I think I treat both of our dogs pretty equally, to be honest. I don't know. I think I take our dog's side on anything, and I think that our dogs are perfect. Probably just the other day we were talking to Sean's mom, and she was like, Sean was like such a great kid. He was so perfect. And I'm like, Tina Meyers, you are so full of it. And she's like, what, he was? And Tina was like, and then Sean was like, no, Mom. And she was like, what? You did that? And like, it was just funny to hear, because I guess like as the mom dog, I don't know. I just feel like they're perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's like the same thing you're saying with my mom saying about me. Like, she says I'm perfect, and then you're saying the dogs are perfect, but then you're calling my mom out because like, oh, he ain't perfect.
But our dogs are perfect.
I think that's what every parent says that has a kid or a dog.
I think it's so easy to love animals if you're a good human being. Let's put it that way, because people who do not treat animals well, there's a problem there. You know, a psychological, mental issue, things they've not worked on. But it's so, for the average person, like, it's so easy to love animals because they can't talk back. You know, they don't have attitudes as such. You know, they're defenseless in many ways. You know, they're not as smart. They need looked after. And so it's so easy to love them. You know, with humans, you got the chat back. You know, people can say things back to you. There can be intentional hurt. You know, defense mechanisms to that don't come across as love. You know, it's so much easier.
Well, I think that kind of goes back to your question, though, Ewan, about how do we handle humans differently than our dogs? Like, I try to be respectful to people, but sometimes when I hear things that come out of their mouth and how rude that people are to other people or to me, or, you know, whatever it may be, usually it's whatever that human is saying that just irks me. And it's so hard to control how I react to that versus like a dog that they don't talk to us in rude ways.
Your whole demeanor changed right there, Kendra. Like your posture, your tone of voice, everything changed, you know, around. And this is not a Kendra thing. This is like human beings. Like they talk about their animals, pets as love and, you know, good stuff. And then you think about a human being getting into it with you, like it changes you.
Well, I mean, I see it every day in school. Like kids, I mean, I teach high school. Like, kids are mean.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if we were just talking to someone yesterday about this, and I'm obviously not going to say who they are, but their little girl is kind of being bullied at church. Like, kids are being mean to her at church. And I'm like, it's going to happen no matter what who the parents are. If the parents, are active in the church, or just members of the church, just visiting the church, or the parents or the preachers of the church. It doesn't even matter. Like, humans, for some reason, we like, I say we, but I don't like, but humans like to kind of bring other people down or try to get to them. They think that certain things are funny when they're not funny, they're hurtful. And they say certain things to try to make not everyone feel included. And that's the thing that I don't like. Like, I don't like at school when I see kids, they could be the richest or the poorest. It doesn't even matter. Like, those kids are somebody's being mean to those kids.
And your personality types are, like, because we know this about each other, or Enneagram numbers, you guys are 8s, and you're very protective, right? Like,
Yes.
if anybody that you love is getting picked upon or not looked after, you guys are straight, like, incredible Hulks coming through. Yeah, you don't want to get in y'all's ways, and that has got to pull your piece. And how do you feel? What is that like then? What is that like?
Yeah. So for me, for me, and I can probably speak for Kendra too, we thrive in those environments because me and Kendra all the time, like, even for our dog, like, even like, I know we're talking about dogs and relating that, and like, even with kids, like, people need, so sometimes parents or even like people in general don't have the courage to stand up and say something or do something about it. So this allows us to thrive in our environments, be the bulldozer that we need to be, and correct course, and stand up for what's right. That's how I feel about it, and I see Kendra doing that all the time. Is like, maybe she's not, if something like that's happening, but she brings a different spin to it or a different perspective to it, where she's able to stand up, actually say something, right, where the other person didn't have the courage or the instincts or the temperament, personality to say something. And it's just, we need more people like that in this world, which is a freaking leader, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of how it was yesterday. I didn't want to sound insensitive when I told the girl that told us about her little girl. I was like, look, like, it doesn't matter who they are, because she was very upset that it was church people's kids that were being mean, right?
Oh, church can be meanest.
Exactly. But I'm like, it doesn't matter who they are. You need to talk to those parents, and you need to make sure that they know what's going on, because that behavior needs to be fixed. Like, you need to not pull your kid from Sunday school because the other kids are being mean. You need to make sure that those kids that are being mean understand what they're actually doing, because this is the thing. Sometimes they don't know. They don't know how it's hurting people. They don't know how their words are hurting. They're like little, like, this little girl is like, okay, I'm lying, I don't know how old she is, maybe like 4 or 5. Okay. So it's like, they don't know that they're maybe hurting her or whatever. There might just be little turds.
Let me tell you this. When I see a kid acting like that, I'm not looking at the kid. I'm looking right at their parents.
Yes. Well, and sometimes though, even though I will say this though too, sometimes it's not even necessarily the parents. And I don't try to like say that just to like say all parents are perfect, but kids learn behaviors from everywhere, right? Like yesterday we were at Christmas, and Sean was teaching like a 2-year-old how to do a push-up. He's not our parent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's something positive, but these learned behaviors can be from anywhere. And teaching high school, like, some of these parents are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're acting like that. And they would never tolerate that behavior, but the kids are learning it from somewhere else. They're learning it from movies, TV, outside sources. Maybe they saw someone in a store say something. They're like little sponges. They absorb everything.
It's the parents' job to install core beliefs that even when they learn those things, they know they're off course. So yeah, They're still going to be mean. They're still going to say those things, but they know deep down inside, that's not gonna cut it. Right. Like,
and that's kind of why I told her, like, hey, have you talked to the parents? Like, are the parents aware? And she's like, well, I just figured out which kids it was this morning. And I was like, okay, well, not that I'm a parent, but my best advice to you is to find those parents, because the parents need to teach their kids differently.
Yeah.
Like, they're still in a super young age. But that's where it hurts me as a human. And I guess I don't get along with humans so well as I do my dogs, because one, I'm outspoken and I'm like, no, don't put up with that crap. Like, we need to get it fixed, but also go to where it can be fixed, because like pulling your little girl out of church service, like the little kids' church service, that's not going to fix anything. Like, that's going to actually hurt her relationship building with Christ because she's not learning whatever it is her Sunday school teacher is teaching her. Instead, you're having to pull her out. You know what I'm saying? And so it's hard for me to relate all those back to humans because the humans, sometimes we're just flat out mean. But we don't realize what our words are saying. Because I mean, even, I'm guilty of it too. Like, I don't realize sometimes whenever I've said something to a student, they were like, I had a kid one day, he was like, I'm so sorry that I made you yell at me. And I'm like, I yelled at you? I was like, about what? And he was like, and he told me, and I was like, oh. And I'm like, well, thanks for apologizing, but I don't remember that. And I'm sorry that I yelled at you to the point where you have like stuck with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's really like, so obviously I'm not perfect either in the way we talk to people.
Why did the kid say that to you?
Okay. So to be completely honest, he was going through AA.
Okay.
And I guess I made a comment.
How did he know to come back to say to you, I'm sorry I made you do that? He must have known something about you.
He was in the steps of AA. I don't know them all. Obviously, I've never been in AA, but he was in the steps where you go back and ask for forgiveness to people that you've hurt. And he came back and he told me that he was sorry because he came to my class. And I'm not dumb. I mean, for those of y'all that don't know, my biological mother was in and out of jail my entire life for drugs and alcohol. And so when kids come to my class and they're either high or drunk or whatever, I know I'm not an idiot. Yeah. And I think that I would like try to like say stuff to him to like get him to understand, but he was also under the influence. And so it was like, it wasn't clicking. But when he went through AA, he realized like how much it upset me. And he was like, I am so sorry I put you through that. And I'm like, but you're a kid, you know, like I was being forgiving to him. And I never, like, it didn't hurt me, but it hurt me at the time. Does that make sense?
If he didn't think that you cared or knew anything about it or had his back, then he wouldn't apologize. So obviously he knew, even though you yelled at him, he knew what your core belief about him is that you care about this kid.
Oh, yeah. Because I mean, it was 3 years after he graduated. I remember telling Sean, I was like, yeah, he reached out to me on Instagram and asked me for my phone number. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, look at the impact.
I was like, okay, what is it about? And then we talked and then he called and he apologized. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah. But I don't think sometimes we realize like how our actions and how our words hurt other people. And I think that that's kind of why it's so hard for us to be so forgiving sometimes to people, because we're like, okay, well, I just said like, you need to stop. Like, how's that hurting you? You know?
Yeah.
But it does. And sometimes it's not about what we say. It's about how we say it.
Tonality, huge. Yeah. Tone. And, you know, for me, I realized to me, like most people, when they act negatively or they act hurt or they say negative things, man, you are dealing with who does that? A positive, powerful, self-confident winner. Do they act like that? They don't. Who does? Someone that is hurt, down. Why do people say negative things to other people? To try and bring them down so that they do not feel like alone. Because if I bring them down, I feel slightly higher up, right? Like it's a negative exchange. And so to me, that's a hurt person. Like anytime I see something negative, I teach my kids this, like, if you catch the ball, it's going to hurt. They threw something at you. And if you catch it, you're going to hold on to it and it's going to hurt. So you can never catch the ball. Someone throws something at you, you bap it right back to them and you keep that ball over there with them so that you can not get influenced or impacted by those people and keep it over there. Because if an animal is wounded and they're hurt, you wouldn't kick them, you know, and that's not that I see human beings as wounded animals, but it just is a technique to not, so I can stay in control. Everyone's personality types are different. P.S. This is not like advice. This is just how I handle it. But I have to realize that these people are hurt, and if I don't, I'm gonna be in a lot of pain. And you know, and y'all's personalities, y'all are such big lovers. And what's funny is, Kendra, like you've said it before, a lot of people might think that you're coming across as abrasive. And the more I study y'all's personality types, like you guys are the biggest lovers. Like you love people so much that it just comes out raw and real. And it might not even seem
unfiltered.
Yes, unfiltered. And people might even be abrasive. Like, why would she say that to me? And yet they've missed the communication that they were receiving. They'll figure it out later. That's what you were doing. Perhaps, hopefully they will. But up front, it almost like, which could be frustrating for you too, because like you're giving all this love, this great advice, like this backing, and people might respond back a little cold, because they're not used to that kind of realness, that love,
And so, it's funny you say that. Did you ever listen to the podcast that Sean and I did at the beginning about the colors?
Oh, yeah, I did. Yep.
Okay, so that is something that I did with my classes, is the color test. And I did that because I am a red, but and I am abrasive, and like I do say things that sometimes is hurtful, but then knowing that I don't want to say things that are hurtful. I don't want to be the person that seems like I'm unfiltered because I don't care. I want people to know I care, right? And because I do, ultimately. And so I went through that color test with all of my students, and I was like, hey, I want to know who y'all are, because I've really tried to work on how I'm talking to other people, because even though that's my personality and I'm so passionate about certain things, and that's why I'm doing it, it doesn't make it right.
Well, you just said it a few minutes ago, like your tonality, how you say things can change the whole, like I really love you. I really love you. Like,
oh yeah, like if somebody yelled at me in Russian and then they yelled at me the same exact thing in English, I would feel like the Russian would sound so much more meaner, just because like the tone and the
tone, which is totally controllable. Have you found that you're able, that you said you'd been working on that, or like?
Oh, I am not perfect, but I try, and Sean can attest this in our marriage too, because I mean, I would back in the day, like especially when we first got the dogs, I'd be like, dude, I will sell you first. Like you're gonna go, not the dogs, stuff like this. But now I'm like, okay, how do I relate more to Sean, and how do I become a better wife and stuff like that? And it's more so like, okay, do I forgive him? Like kind of like dogs, they forgive you. I step on Trip, he's going to forgive me in 5 seconds and give me a kiss. And so it's kind of like, am I going to continue to be mad at certain things, or am I going to get over it? Like, for example, this morning, my husband ate my breakfast. And I was so mad. I was so hungry. But it's like, okay, is it really life or death? Like, no, I'm not going to die.
And
like,
what do you get if you don't forgive?
Then I'm just going to be angry all day. And it's my birthday. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah. Not that you you don't let him abuse you and let him eat your breakfast every day, but you forgive that one thing and work it out.
Yes, he just ate the one thing I wanted to eat.
Sean, you're dying to say something here, Sean. What is it, dude?
No, I love it, because the funny thing is, like, with living with another, type A personality, right? In building a business, and like even mine and Kendra's friends, and like who Kendra like really loves and like takes care of, temperament, and like a personality, like our temperaments, we really love folks that are like harmony, like our moms, like the ones that can't that don't stick up for themselves. That's where like they get us. That's where we're like, we got you, because there is zero tolerance. And that's why I think we love dogs so much. And like dogs are so like, they're so like, they can't do nothing wrong, right? They're so harmony and peace and bliss, and like they won't bow up to you, and then like that's what softens us.
Yeah.
So with Kendra, like with things like breakfast and all these things, like her 8 comes out, her type A personality comes out, and then she comes at me, and then I'm like, before, like years ago, I'd have been like, oh no, we're ramming this, we're going at this. Like 8s don't back down to other 8s. We just don't, And then I was like, okay. And then fast forward, right? And on my health, my journey of leveling up, I'm like, now Kendra knows I'm like I do things that I try, I'm like, just breathe, and I do these things that I know, like, okay, I tested that didn't work, that backfired.
Yeah, so, you should never tell your wife to just breathe.
And so I've learned that,
right?
That
is relationship advice for every male listening. Never tell your wife to breathe.
Yeah, agreed. Right. And there's certain things that you got to test, you got to try out and kind of figure out. And now it's like, like she came in this morning and, and said I ate her breakfast. Of course, in my mind, I'm like, I didn't know it was her breakfast. And so we talked through those things, right? And it kind of comes down to a level playing field versus, like not start up here and escalate things. Now it's like, okay, let's bring it down here. Let's get on common ground, and let's talk. Let's not hash this out, but let's talk about this like adults. and see what we can do moving forward, to make sure that doesn't happen again.
What's funny about that is like you can buy the flowers. Oh, that's love. You could go on the nice date nights. You can go on the vacations. You can buy the gifts. That's love, right? No, I don't think so. That's just like some cherries on top of a relationship. What is love is when you could get into that head to head and the other person backs down because of love, right? And it's not even backing down. That's the wrong term. It's like, I'm not backing down because I want this to be okay. I love you, and I
not
don't need to win this argument for my own ego. How pathetic, you know what I mean? And we've all been there. Like, I still remember the days of trying to win an argument. Okay, you won an argument. Well, but now you're a jerk. So was it worth it?
And that we'll all be in that situation where we're going to all try to win the argument, in the future too, because we're not perfect. But it's trying to recognize the fact that you don't have to win the argument, or it's not worth it. Or I know this sounds kind of silly too, but y'all remember those bracelets? What would Jesus do? The WWJD, we all wore them back in the day to remind us what would Jesus do in certain situations. It's kind of the same thing now. And sometimes it's kind of like, okay, well, I literally thought this morning. Okay, if Trip would have ate my breakfast, would I have been mad?
Good experiment, Kendra. What did you think?
Like, no, I would have been like, Bubba, you ate my breakfast. What are you doing? And he would have been licking
mad.
And then he would have like, no, I can't be mad at him. And then he would have kissed me on my face and I would have been just fine. And so I couldn't be mad at Sean. Now, I was a little upset, but I also sometimes have that expectation. Okay, well, Sean, please don't lick me in my face, but like say, oh, I'm so sorry, or whatever. Just acknowledge like, oh, crap, like I messed up. I ate your breakfast. I'm sorry. And then that's kind of sometimes what it is, because it's not that dogs can talk, but they do acknowledge that you're upset and you're like, oh my gosh. And then they get so excited and they want to like love on you because they see you're upset. Yeah. And that's kind of how humans should honestly react sometimes to each other.
Dead.
Not like them in the face.
Dead right. Sean, how would you react, Sean, if Trip ate your breakfast? How would you do?
For probably a good solid 15 seconds, I'd be like, dude, what just happened? And then immediately I'd flip the light switch and go, one or two things are going to happen right now. Hey, what's done is done. What's happened is happened.
Nice.
And then I'd look at myself in the mirror and go, I left it to where he ate it. That's extreme ownership. It's the same thing in the marriage too. Like whatever happens, like this morning, I ate her breakfast. I'm fully responsible for that. And so what can I do moving forward, right? Do we need to name the meal prep? What do we need to do, right? So I take extreme ownership and for everything. And then what I do, even if it's not me, even if it wasn't me, right? And Trip ate the breakfast, then I still assess the situation as like, what can I do differently moving forward so that doesn't happen again, right? Because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah. What I'm not hearing is a knee-jerk frustration, anger right off the bat and holding it against them for hours on end, which is, and you said 15 seconds, man. That's my definition of success in a relationship because like Kendra said it, you are going to argue and get into issues and have arguments and the ego will kick in and you're going to want to win. My definition of success is how fast can you condense the time of that negative experience to like, hey, let me apologize. And if you can get it down to within seconds, like even during the argument, it's about like, hold up. I realize what's going on here. I'm doing this and I'm going to try and win this argument here. And I see what I'm doing. And let me just go ahead and stop and ask you, man, what did you really mean? Was that what you meant? Of course, that's not what you meant. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Let's start again. You know what? That's helped so many conversations with me and my wife. That's taken years to build that muscle, and it still doesn't always work. And I'm hearing you say the same thing, but
yeah, no, it allows you to keep. For me, it's like it allows you to keep moving forward and like focus on what's important. Because if not, like you do it the other way, like I've done before in the past, and I mean, dude, the only person that's miserable is you, right? Sure, everybody else around you can make that environment miserable. But it's like going back to relating to the dogs, like, they could be upset for 10 seconds. You step on them, you spank them or whatever it is that you're doing, with those dogs. But at the end of the day, within 5 or 10 seconds, they're turning around, licking you in the face, smiling, excited to see you. And I'm just like, how do I do more of that? Because if you can tell they're living in bliss, they're living in, they have peace and they're happy. I'm like, dude, if I can get a percentage of that, then I feel like that's part of leveling up and living life,
Man, just you saying that makes me think of our relationship with God. He doesn't even have the 15 seconds of anger. God doesn't get angry. Like he does get angry. Let me say that, but he loves us, and he's, as soon as you screw up the worst possible thing that you could ever do, you could spin around. He's got his arms open, waiting for you to come right back.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, man, that's a fact. But man, we are almost that. This is the longest podcast thing we've ever done. We could probably keep speaking for another hour. And very interesting. We started off talking about dogs, and we got deep into talking to humans and the relationship and how we communicate with each other. This applies to family life, your friends, and man, your business. Think about everything that was said here today. You could easily think this is just about dogs, but this is about human responses to all different kinds of situations under stress and relationship building and maturity and immaturity and all that. So yeah.
I think to kind of dovetail on that, you and too, like it's 2023 and people are complaining that it's a rough year or it's, it's hard or whatever. Like in order for that to change, we have to change.
Yeah. Yes. It's not easy. It's not comfortable, but it's worth it. It's worth it once it's done. Any final words from you, Sean?
Level up and live, baby.
Level up and live. Kendra, level up and live. Thanks so much for giving us your time and your insights. And I loved it. This is one of my favorite conversations yet.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
Yeah. Thanks, Kendra. All right. Have a great day, guys.
And there you have it, folks. A big thank you to Kendra Meyers for joining us today and shedding light on the uncanny connection between business, personal life, and our beloved canine companions. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with your friends and fellow dog lovers. Now, before we wrap up, I want to remind you about our special New Year's offer. As we gear up for 2024, we've prepared some fantastic free guides and planners to help you chart a course for a strong, healthy, and fulfilling year ahead. Head over to our shared notes to grab your free resources today. And as always, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review the Level Up and Live podcast on your favorite platform. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps us bring you even more incredible content. Remember, you have the power to level up your life. Until next time, keep striving, keep growing, and keep living your best life.